This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show. And folks, we are calling the great Outback this evening. This evening here, in the morning there. I had the lovely, beautiful Marneen Lynn Fields on here not so very long ago, actually earlier this month of April. And now her husband, John Harrison, is now on the phone with me. And all I got to say is, good day, mate.
Thank you for that, mate. I appreciate that wonderful introduction. When you started saying the wonderful and beautiful and stunning, I thought you were talking about me, but I'm glad you pointed out that you were talking about Marneen. Not exactly in the outback out here, though. Not exactly Mad Max territory. I'm in Melbourne, Australia, which is, pretty big sort of suburban, sprawling metropolis. So, but yeah, it's, there's still a lot of the outback out there, I guess. Movies like Mad Max and Crocodile Dundee had a pretty big impact on the American perception of Australia, I guess, in the 1980s, and there is still quite a bit of that about.
Yeah.
But, we don't quite get the kangaroos hopping down the main street here, but... Yeah, ever been to Australia yourself, Greg?
Actually, I've never been outside New Brunswick, Canada, and I'm willing to bet you probably don't even know where that is.
No, Marneen did give me a brief sort of fill-in, but no, I haven't been to Canada, unfortunately. I always wanted to. I know when I used to travel with my mum as a kid, Canada was one of the places she always wanted to bring us, but we never quite made it that far. We sort of did a few trips to America as a teenager, but never quite made it up that far up north, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, I got to talk to you a little bit about Australia because I'm going to tell you, I know familiar with a lot of the animals there, and I know Australia is the one place on the planet that has more poisonous snakes than harmless. And I got to say, the taipan is quite fascinating to me.
Yeah, look, fortunately we don't, where I am, there's not that much in the way of poisonous wildlife, much to Marneen's relief, I'm sure. But, I remember, as a kid we used to go on tours and that up in Queensland, and they'd take us on boat tours through the swamps up there, and they'd show us some of the poisonous snakes, and of course we have a couple of poisonous spiders out here as well, and lots of crocodiles in the Northern Territory, which are often causing a bit of problems with the tourists, and quite a few great white sharks, unfortunately. There's been a few fatal attacks recently. So, it's definitely a place where you need to keep your wits about you if you're in certain areas. But here in the the city, there's not really a whole lot to worry about. Usually the worst you've got to worry about are the mosquitoes during summer.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, you guys have the Australian saltwater crocodile, which I believe is the biggest of the crocodiles.
Yeah, there are some big ones out here. And again, I remember seeing one as a kid going up to a crocodile farm up north somewhere in Queensland. And I was fairly little at the time, so I don't remember the details, but I just have this image in my head of seeing this. I'm sure they said it was like, over 100 years old, just this massive crocodile just sort of sitting there in a, like a little fenced-off area. Just almost looked like it was stuffed, but I wasn't willing to touch it or, tempt fate, obviously.
Yeah. And, of course, I'm familiar, with the snakes, the taipan, the fierce snake, the tiger snake, the death adder, yeah, I guess the wilderness is probably not the safest place to go walking around.
No, I mean, look, a lot of people love it. It's their thing. And, I do love traveling and seeing the mountainous areas of Australia, like the Grampians, which is a lovely sort of mountain area, a few hours drive from Melbourne. And, that has a lot of lizards and koalas and kangaroos and that hopping about. So that's about as much as I like to tempt fate, I guess.
Yeah.
But, there are, I think the thing is, too, it's like any place, as long as you're careful and keep your wits about you and don't do anything stupid, you find most of the people that do get, unfortunately, attacked by wildlife out here, do so by brazenly, disregarding signs that say, no swimming, crocodile area, or, just, I think if you keep your wits about you, you're pretty right.
Yeah. Well, I have done a little bit of wildlife watching on television, so I would see a lot of the stuff in Australia and some interesting wildlife there. I've never been to Australia, but like I said, it was August of 2015. Interviewed Little Nell Campbell of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and that was my first call to Australia, and she was a delight. I liked her a lot.
No, she's fantastic. I did meet her a couple of years ago myself when she was doing a film, one of those film collect conventions that they have regularly, and she was appearing here with Patricia Quinn, who was the co-star in Rocky Horror Picture Show. She played Magenta.
Yeah.
And they were both very nice. They signed autographs and chatted and did a bit of a Q&A, so...
Yeah.
Very nice people, I think. They were just happy to be there, always very friendly and smiling. So, but she's been a bit of a fixture in Australia since the Rocky Horror days. She's been a fairly regular appearing in plays and such over here.
Do you ever see Paul Hogan?
Never see him personally, but no, obviously we're very well aware of him. Growing up in the 70s, he was one of the big, probably one of the big, 2 or 3 television stars over here with his Paul Hogan show that he had, a variety show, variety comedy show. So he was probably at the level of, Johnny Carson or people like that, at the time. And then he kind of disappeared for a couple of years. I guess he's, like a lot of TV personalities, they have their peak and then they disappear for a while, and you think whatever happened to them. And then, obviously what he was doing was planning his Crocodile Dundee movie, and that really gave him a second lease of life, I guess, and became like a huge film all over the world. And he also did, they also got him as the face of Australian tourist commercials, with his, do you want to throw a shrimp on the Barbie sort of commercials that he filmed for America to try and attract, American tourists to Australia. So that became like a really big, I guess it became a real big cultural phenomenon worldwide at that point. And, he's still about. They just did a 2-part sort of TV series based on his life over here, which kind of aired recently, but probably wasn't very well received. I don't think the guy that played him looked too much like him, but there's really only one Paul Hogan. And, of course, prior to Paul Hogan, there was also Olivia Newton-John, who created a big sort of, awareness of Australia with, after a Physical song became a really big hit, and then she started her own sort of line of shops in America called Koala Blue, where she was selling Australian merchandise. And Men at Work, of course, had their big song Down Under and talking about Vegemite sandwiches. And so, there was that period in the 80s where I guess Australia really became a bit of a cultural phenomenon in the States and really helped the local tourist industry, I think.
I love Olivia Newton-John. I love Olivia Newton-John.
Me too. She's great. When we were just in Las Vegas where Marneen got her award for her Catherine Davis Take Two song, and Olivia Newton-John was being honoured there with a Lifetime Achievement Award. So it was great to see her, there on the red carpet with Marneen. And
yeah.
And I think Marneen did say she saw her in concert, way back when, way before even Physical and Grease, when she was still a bit of a, I guess, a country western singer almost in her early days.
Yeah.
But she's fantastic. She's had her own, misfortunes in life, like a lot of people have in recent years with battling illnesses. And her husband, I think her partner sort of disappeared off the side of a boat, and no one really knows what happened to him. So, but it's good to see her out and about. I mean, she still looked fantastic at the awards in Vegas. That was terrific to see her there getting her award and seeing Marneen getting up on stage after her.
Yeah. And you mentioned
at the Hard Rock Cafe.
Yeah. And you mentioned Men at Work. Of course, Down Under was a big song here as well.
Yeah, and again, I think that's what a lot of people, when they there was a line in it saying, I said, "Do you speak my language?" He just smiled and gave me a Vegemite sandwich. And everyone's like, well, what the heck is a Vegemite sandwich, you know? And I've tried to introduce Marneen to Vegemite, but no go. I think one little bite, and that was enough for her to... But I think Vegemite, it's kind of one of those things like, you have, or America has peanut butter and jelly, or peanut butter and jam, as we call it. And Vegemite on toast and Vegemite sandwiches are something that we were sort of brought up on, since we were kids. And I think it's something that you really have to have ingrained in you like that. Whereas when you're an adult that's never tried it before, you're kind of like, ooh, what is this stuff? It's just black and thick and gross. But I've met a few Americans that say they've developed a taste for Vegemite. I guess it all depends how you approach it, and a lot of people tend to, really smother it on their toast for the first time, and that turns them off it. It's something you've got to use very sparingly.
Yeah. Here's a little lesser known one. I remember the World Wrestling Federation had an Australian wrestler named Outback Jack.
Oh, yeah, yep, that's right, yep. Yeah, the wrestling became a pretty big phenomena here in the mid-'80s when they started broadcasting the WrestleManias, and that was really the first that we over here started hearing about people like Hulk Hogan and all of those. We did have our own wrestling, World Championship Wrestling, but yeah, the Hulk Hogan and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, all of them. And yeah, I remember Outback Jack, and I think there was a duo called the Bushwhackers as well.
Yes, the Bushwhackers.
Australia.
Yeah, the Bushwhackers.
Yeah.
Well,
they
Outback
were really flying the flag for the country.
Yeah, Outback Jack though, they never had him in any events, and I always felt bad about that. I guess he had
He got left out.
Yeah, he was never in any of the WrestleManias. I never understood that. I do know that he had received an eye injury when he wrestled Killer Khan. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I always preferred, I guess, as an Australian, I was more attracted to the more, exotic American wrestlers. I think Honky Tonk Man was one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
Come out dressed like Elvis and whack the opponents over the head with his guitar.
Yeah, I liked Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I liked Jake the Snake Roberts was a big favorite of mine.
Snake, yep.
And
Ultimate Warrior.
Warrior. Randy Macho Man Savage.
Yeah, Randy Macho Man Savage. A lot of them, unfortunately, passed on, a bit before their time. Roddy Piper.
Roddy Piper's one of my all-time favorites, Roddy Piper. Yes, I was heartbroken.
Me too.
I was
and
heartbroken.
Made a couple of great films as well. He did Hell Comes to Frogtown and the John Carpenter movie They Live.
Yep. I was heartbroken when he passed away.
Yeah, definitely. It was a bit of a shock. I guess with a lot of these wrestlers, you don't know what they've done over the years in terms of maintaining their physique. And Macho Man, and when I was in LA, a bit over a year ago, I had a lunch and an interview with a fellow Rock Riddle, who was also like a wrestler and a good friend of Roddy Piper's, and he was sort of at the funeral and talked a lot about his association with Roddy and how he met him, and that was really nice.
Yeah, that was sad, but yeah, you're when I have Marneen on here, I got to ask, how did you meet Marneen? I mean, she's a lovely woman. Stunt woman. We talked about The Gauntlet and all these various movies she was in, and very lovely woman. How did you get very lucky and get her as your wife?
Yeah, it was a very lucky strike. Basically, where it all started was I write articles for an American film magazine called Wang's Chop. And I was in the middle of researching and writing an article on, the big 70s disaster movies like Earthquake and The Towering Inferno, Poseidon Adventure, etc. And through that, I think I posted something on my Facebook about it, and Marneen had seen it. I wasn't friends with Marneen or anything on Facebook at that point, but through a mutual friend, she'd seen the post, and she contacted me through that. And, I found out through that she'd actually done stunts and some stunt acting roles on some of these disaster films like Airport 79 and The Swarm and Beyond the Poseidon Adventure and Goliath Awaits. And I said, oh, that's fantastic. I'd love to include an interview with you as a side piece to the article coming up. And she was very accommodating to that. And, we had a great chat. And after the interview, we just seemed to be inseparable and just kept emailing and interviewing and talking over the phone. And eventually we realized that, there was a real sort of attraction there. Obviously being in different countries was a little bit of an issue, but, we made a tentative date to meet up in LA and said, look, if the chemistry's there, we should pursue it. If not, then we'll continue being friends and collaborators. But as soon as we met at the airport, the chemistry was definitely there, and we've pretty much been together ever since.
Wow. How long?
We went to Vegas and got married at the Little White Wedding Chapel, which was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
It was pretty much, I've always said if I was going to get married, it would be in Vegas. But,
okay.
We didn't get married by an Elvis impersonator, but there was an Elvis impersonator walking around marrying another couple, which was kind of cool to see.
You didn't get the honky-tonk man to do it?
No, that would have been great, but he might have, when he said, I now pronounce you man and wife, he might have hit me over the head with his guitar or something.
Yeah.
But, it was funny because we were sitting in the waiting room and the chapel where the Elvis minister was marrying a couple, you could obviously tell when they got to the point where they said, I now pronounce you man and wife, because suddenly, the room just filled with that, classic sort of Elvis theme, that da-da-da, da-da-da. You thought, oh, yeah, they've tied the knot now. So it was a very surreal experience, but very lovely as well. It's fantastic, some of those beautiful old wedding chapels in Vegas, and we had a great time, exploring all the old sort of downtown Vegas motels from the 50s and photographing them. It was fantastic.
Okay. I want to know what is your connection to film? Like, have you been in them, or what's your connection?
No, mainly, my connection's more just as a lifelong film fan. I've always loved movies ever since I was a little kid, and I guess, everyone sort of loves movies and watches movies, but even from an early age, I was sort of more, really sort of interested in reading about them, finding out how they made them, tracking down more films by the directors whose movies I loved. And I guess from there, I started writing about films in high school, and then in my early 20s, I decided, I think writing something that I really want to pursue as a career. So I started doing film reviews for the local, university paper and the local street press, and really just snowballed from there, I guess.
Have you ever been in any films?
Only a couple of student films, and, I've done like some television shows talking about movies, but no, Marneen's the movie star in this household.
Well, Marneen had told me that you're a real whiz when it comes to the James Bond franchise.
Yeah, I guess James Bond was one of my big early sort of obsessions, I guess, and it all started when my dad took me to see Star Wars when it first came out when I was like about 13, and we went to the cinema, and unfortunately Star Wars was sold out. So, I was really upset. My dad said, oh, well, we'll see this movie that's playing, at the cinema next door, which was the then new James Bond movie, The Spy Who Loved Me. And I was like, oh, I don't want to see that. I came to see Star Wars. But, I went along with it. And as soon as that opening sequence of The Spy Who Loved Me came up on the screen, I just forgot all about Star Wars. And I was instantly, transfixed by James Bond. So, well, all of my friends, I did eventually see Star Wars the next week and really enjoyed it. But while all of my school friends were going to see Star Wars, for the 5th and 6th and 7th time, I was going to see The Spy Who Loved Me for the ultimate time.
Well,
and then through that started, reading the original novels, and then, watching the Sean Connery movies when they showed up on TV. And
well, I can't fault you there, because I've had Caroline Munro on my show back last August.
Yep.
Yeah, she was in The Spy Who Loved Me, and we all love Caroline.
Absolutely. I mean, she was only in it very briefly as the helicopter pilot and the lady on the boat, but definitely created an impression. And she was in a few good sort of cult movies in the 70s, a couple of the Hammer horror movies like Dracula AD 1972 she was great in, and of course currently one of the books I'm working on is a book on Marjo Gortner, and Caroline Munro co-starred or starred in a movie with him called Star Crash in 1979, and it's an Italian sort of space Star Wars type film that she was terrific in. They were both terrific in.
Yeah, and of course, Barbara Bach was in Spy Who Loved Me, and Ringo
Yep,
Starr got
right.
really lucky there.
Absolutely, yeah, he's definitely punching above his weight, I guess the saying is. But yeah, she sort of had a good career for a while there. She was great in The Spy Who Loved Me, and she'd done a couple of early Italian thrillers sort of prior to that, giallo as they call them. Those Italian thrillers that they do. And then she did a movie with Ringo called Caveman, which was a kind of like, primitive spoof.
Yeah.
I don't think there was ever any dialogue in it. But
yeah, I had Carol. I had Carol Gottlieb. I had Carol Gottlieb, the director of Caveman, on, and we talked about Caveman.
Fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a funny little film, Caveman. It's really cute and charming, I think.
Yeah.
But I think after that she pretty much disappeared. I guess she was just happy to be the wife of an ex-Beatle.
Yeah. Well, and of course, Caroline was also in The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, and I've had the pleasure of doing a couple of Ray Harryhausen tribute interviews with somebody from the Ray Harryhausen Foundation, and I love The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, and of course, Clash of the Titans, one of my all-time favorite movies. Yeah.
Oh, all that Ray Harryhausen stuff was just phenomenal. I did meet him once in the 90s, mid to late 90s. He came out here for a Ray Harryhausen retrospective screening up in Queensland, but I think he was just down in Melbourne for a couple of days, R&R with his wife, and a guy who runs a local comic book shop managed to get hold of him and said, would you like to come in, for a couple of hours on Saturday and just meet some of your fans? So I turned up that day, and there was probably only about, because it was so last minute and not really advertised, there was only about like 3 or 4 people there. So we got to have a lot of great sort of one-on-one time with Ray, and he signed a few of my old Cine Fantastic and Famous Monsters of Filmland magazines that had covers from some of his movies, and he was fantastic, just full of anecdotes and just very friendly and charming.
Yeah. But getting
and
back...
a real trailblazer, of course, in the way of special effects. No one will ever top that stuff.
No. Well, getting back to James Bond. Now, I've seen a number of the James Bond films. We'll start with who's your favorite Bond?
Look, I have to go with Sean Connery, I guess.
Okay.
Roger Moore initially, because he was my first Bond, so initially he was my favorite. And I watched a couple of the Sean Connery ones on TV. And when I started going and reading the original Ian Fleming novels, I think that's when I realized Sean Connery was obviously the more faithful interpretation of the character. So, I guess, Thunderball and From Russia with Love, You Only Live Twice, and Goldfinger, of course, Dr. No, they're all really classics, whereas Roger Moore did a couple of really good ones, Spy Who Loved Me and For Your Eyes Only. Live and Let Die is a lot of fun, but he did do a few that were probably at the lower of the totem. But I think probably the most accurate Bond, though, was Timothy Dalton in terms of bringing the character on the page to life on screen. But unfortunately, he never really got the chance to settle into the character, His films, unfortunately, didn't do too well commercially, and I think there was a lot of sort of legal troubles at the time that prevented them from making another Bond movie for some years. So by the time they got back into making him, Dalton had sort of outgrown the role, or they didn't want him back, and they went with Pierce Brosnan.
Well, out of the Sean Connery ones, which one was your favorite?
If I look back now on the whole canon of them, I think the one with the Australian, George Lazenby, was a fantastic one, on Her Majesty's Secret Service. I think if Sean Connery had been in that one, it probably would have been considered, the best Bond of them all. But, I think that's a very underrated movie.
I agree, yep.
Terrific story, and really sort of emotional with the stuff with the wife, and a great villain in Telly Savalas as Blofeld, and also one of the best Bond girls, of course, Diana Rigg, very classy and beautiful.
Yeah.
Terrific music, and I even think, George Lazenby, considering his lack of acting experience, did pretty well in it. And I think, if he had come back for a couple more films, might have really settled in and grown into the role, but that wasn't to be.
You know what? I too think that George Lazenby was all right in the role. I didn't think he was that bad. But out of the Sean Connery ones, which one did you like best?
Probably I'd say Spy Who Loved Me, since that was the first one I saw at the
No,
cinema,
I mean the ones with Sean Connery.
Oh, the ones with Sean Connery.
Yeah.
I think Thunderball is probably my favourite of the Sean Connery movies.
Okay.
I think it's great story, great villains, great Bond girls, great action. Some people find it's a little bit slow moving and not as fast paced as Goldfinger, which came before it. And a lot of people, of course, love From Russia with Love, just because it's probably the most, I guess that's the one that has the most sort of flavour of the original Fleming novels. But really, all the Connery ones are fantastic. Maybe Diamonds Are Forever was a little bit of a drawback, I guess, or a little
I
bit
agree.
a come down, because he was a little bit older and the film just seemed a little bit cheaper. But, it still had some great moments in it, and I love watching it because of all the stuff set in Vegas, and, a lot of it takes place in Circus, where Marneen and I just stayed for a few days, which was fun to see.
Well, I gotta say, probably Goldfinger I thought was Connery's best one, with From Russia with Love also up there. But Dr. No I liked a lot because I think that Ursula Andress, absolutely gorgeous and my favorite Bond girl of all time.
Yeah, Dr. No is fantastic. It's the perfect sort of introduction to Bond, isn't it? And, it's got some creepiness to it. That scene where they slip the giant spider into his bed, and of course it has Jack Lord from Hawaii Five-0 playing Felix Leiter. And yeah, there's a real sort of sense of, this was the first one they were doing. Who knows how it's going to turn out? They may have thought this will be it, and we'll do one Bond film and that'll be it. So, but yeah, it was terrific. They're all really good. I think all those Sean Connery ones and the first few Roger Moore ones, they're all pretty much terrific stuff. And even the later ones were good. I like the current ones. I didn't like Quantum of Solace all that much, but Spectre and Skyfall were pretty fantastic. Wasn't a huge fan of Pierce Brosnan, but, the first one he did, GoldenEye, was really good. And I think, a couple of the other ones had some nice moments in them.
Well, for the Roger Moore ones, I'll probably go with you on that. The Spy Who Loves Me, got two beautiful women in it. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of, it had some humour, but it didn't have, real over-the-top humour that some of the, later stuff like Moonraker had. And, a lot of the Spy Who Loved Me was kind of like retreaded, I guess, from You Only Live Twice. But, it was good. It was big, and it was Bond, and it had a great theme song, of course, Carly Simon, and a fantastic opening sequence where he skis off that high cliff top. There's just everything about it that a 13-year-old kid would love.
Now, out of the two that Timothy Dalton did, which one did you prefer?
I think License to Kill, probably, is my favourite of the two. I mean, Living Daylights was really good, but I think License to Kill, he really sort of nailed the character of Bond a lot more in that one. Even though watching it, it was probably a bit more of a generic sort of, 80s American action film as such. I guess The Living Daylights had more of a Bond feel to it, but I think in License to Kill was the one where he really sort of nailed the Bond character.
Yeah. Now, Pierce Brosnan, I got to admit, I liked him a lot. And GoldenEye was the first one I seen in theaters. I remember there's a huge lineup for it. And I liked GoldenEye a lot, but I think Tomorrow Never Dies, I thought, was his best one.
Yeah, probably. Again, GoldenEye, I guess that was the first one that they made after a bit of a layoff after the Timothy Dalton ones. There was a bit of a legal problem, I think, that prevented the producers from making another Bond film for a few years. And so I think by the time GoldenEye came around, there was a real, anticipation that had built up. It had been the first time since the 60s that there hadn't been a Bond film every couple of years. So there was a lot of anticipation for it. And, yeah, I think he did a really good job in his debut. Tomorrow Never Dies, yeah, that was pretty good as well. I think all of them, he had some pretty good performances in. But overall, I think, especially the last one, Die Another Day, I think was probably one of the more disappointing ones in the whole series.
I thought that was his weakest one. Yeah, I didn't mind it, but I thought agreed. It was his weakest one.
Yeah, it just seemed to be they were just getting a bit too over the top again. The same problem that had happened with the the later Roger Moore ones. I guess it was just getting too far into the realm of comic and send up with the invisible car and surfing on the giant wave and everything. But even the worst Bond movies, you can sit there and enjoy it for the time that they're on. I don't think any of them are terrible or boring.
No. And Daniel Craig, I got to say, hands down, his best one was Skyfall. And I think getting Sam Mendes, the director of American Beauty, to direct it, I think that was what made that work really well.
Yeah, definitely. I'd agree. It really helps when you have a good sort of solid director behind it. A lot of the Roger Moore ones were directed by John Glenn, who had sort of been an editor, and he did an okay job, but a solid job. But when you get someone who's a true, filmmaker like Sam Mendes, I think it's the same as when you get someone like Christopher Nolan taking on the Batman franchise. There's just something different about it when a real genuine sort of filmmaker who's not necessarily known as an action or a blockbuster filmmaker gets the chance to take on a big sort of franchise like this. They can really inject it with a lot of freshness and a lot of originality and vitality. And Skyfall definitely had that. It was complex and dark and lots of character in it and really gripping. Great theme song, of course, by Adele.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a favorite Bond villain?
Bond villain. I guess, again, because I love Thunderball so much, I love Adolfo Celli as the villain in that, Largo, and I, of course, love Telly Savalas as Blofeld in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I mean, Marneen always says one of the reasons she fell in love with me was because I look like Kojak, Telly Savalas. So I guess I got to have a bit of an affinity for him. But a lot of them were great. Dr. No was fantastic, and Goldfinger, of course. He had that great line where Sean Connery says, do you expect me to talk, Goldfinger? And Goldfinger says, no, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die. He was terrific.
So you weren't no Dr. Evil?
Dr. Evil. Oh, yeah.
Wait a minute. Wrong one.
Wrong franchise, yeah. But they did, Mike Myers did a good job of sending up the whole 60s spy genre in those movies.
Yeah.
I think it just shows how much they made an impact, that you could, 30 or 40 years after the Bond movies first started, you're still able to do like a send-up of them, and, everyone in the world is still aware of the movies that they're sending up. I think that's a testimony to just how, long-lasting and what an impact the Bond movies have made on, and the Bond character has made on pop culture, in the last 50 years. And it's kind of sad that, the guy who created Bond, Ian Fleming, and wrote all the books, kind of died just before Goldfinger came out. So, while we got to see the first couple of movies come out, he really sort of missed out on seeing, his creation become a real sort of genuine, I guess, icon of 20th century, really, beyond.
Did he like those first two movies?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe he definitely liked Sean Connery in the role, and who knows? At the time, there was you didn't have the internet or tweets where a director could, or a creator could, just tweet something about what they really thought about a role. So, but yeah, he certainly seemed very supportive, and he seemed very happy to see the movies getting made. I think it was good fortune for him as well, of course, because he would have got a nice royalty or payments out of it for seeing the character go to the screen. But yeah, just kind of a little bit disappointing, I guess, that he never got to see it become, the huge sort of success and the impact that it, eventually had, his character. But, reading those books as a teenager were just fantastic. You couldn't put them down.
No.
They're full of everything, a little kid likes: action, adventure, sex, horror, torture.
Oh yeah, yeah. They did kind of push the boundaries when it come to sexuality in the film.
Definitely, yeah,
Yeah.
especially for the time as well. A lot of people say, oh, but a lot of the Bond movies from the early days, they didn't really have much to do with the books other than the title. But when you read the books, you think, well, there's no way they could have, really depicted a lot of that stuff in films at the time. The censor board wouldn't have let them get away with that, especially if, the very first Bond movie, Casino Royale, where there's the scene where they torture his genitals. There's no way they could have depicted that in the 60s and been able to, get away with it, I guess. But, obviously by the time they did Casino Royale, several years ago, 10 or so years ago, obviously they were able to, they had the freedom to depict that stuff, and it, turned out very effective as well. It was a pretty squirm-inducing moment.
Yeah.
If you're a guy, especially.
Yeah. Well, being here in Canada... What's that?
Yep, sorry, go on.
I was going to...
but I do have a big James Bond collection that I'll have to send you some photos of. One of the big things was as a kid, I loved when there was a film or TV show that I loved, I always loved getting closer to it by collecting anything that was released. So, I ended up amassing a whole lot of original James Bond board games and model kits and dolls and toy Aston Martins and... a lot of it I've still held on to. So Marneen always loves playing with the James Bond shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got a photo of herself on the shelf. She's trying to be one of the Bond girls, I think.
Yeah. Well, being here from Canada, I was wondering if you had any favorite Canadian films.
Well, I guess the ones I really admire are there's a director named David Cronenberg.
Oh, yeah.
He's probably my favorite director from that area. I recently went and rewatched a bunch of his early stuff like Shivers and Rabid and a couple of others, The Brood.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, he would definitely be my favorite. His work is very, very original and very, very disturbing and unsettling.
I had Stephen Lack on my show from Scanners last year, celebrating the 35th.
Okay.
Yeah, I did not know this,
Fantastic.
but his wife is from the Maritimes here, which I thought was an interesting touch. So he's got a connection here to New Brunswick. But
yeah, fantastic. I mean, you can sort of tell, even though those Cronenberg films, there's just something different about the locations, and he really brought out the isolation in a lot of the locations he used, I think, and a lot of the coldness. I think that's what I like about a lot of his early films. They're very sort of cold and clinical, and there's something really offsetting and, effectively disturbing about that.
You have
kind of really has that distrust of, medicine and science and politicians, and, very, very clever filmmaker, I think, and it's a bit unfortunate that these days, I don't think he can really sort of raise the money to make the movies he wants to make, which is a bit sad. But,
it is,
he certainly had a great long career. He's done some amazing stuff, The Dead Zone, and even some of his later stuff. Crash was fantastic.
Oh, I enjoyed Crash. Very controversial, but I enjoyed it.
Absolutely, at the time, yeah. Even now, I lend it to some people, and, they're like, oh, God, pretty strong stuff.
Yeah. Have you seen our highest grossing film here in Canada is Bon Cop Bad Cop? Have you seen that?
No, I don't believe so. What was it called again?
Bon Cop Bad Cop. It has Colm Feore is in it, and what it's about, it's half English and half French, and they get a sequel coming out to it this year. It came out in 2006, and
okay.
And what it's about is there's two cops. One is French and one is English. And there's this body that has fallen from a high, I don't know, I forget now what was thrown out of I don't know whether a plane or something like that. And it lands impaled on this sign that's crosses over. The body is half on one jurisdiction and half on another.
Oh, okay. That's kind of an interesting concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
You always see and hear about authorities arguing over, which jurisdiction the crime comes under. That's interesting. I'll need to have to look that one up. I'm not sure if been released out here. Certainly not aware of the title.
Yeah, it's BON, Bon Cop, Bad Cop, and
Bon Cop, Bad Cop.
yeah, it's basically a crime comedy, very very funny, and very well written as well.
Excellent. I'll definitely look that one up and let you know what I think of it.
Another one that I would recommend to you. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they've done 11 seasons here. And there's been 3 movies, The Trailer Park Boys.
Oh, okay, yeah, yep. I haven't, not overly familiar. I have seen some episodes of it when I had cable TV a while ago. But yeah, very fun show. I've always had a fascination with trailer park culture in America for some reason. I think going back to when I first did my first holidays in America as a young teenager, we'd travel from city to city by Greyhound bus and pass through, these small towns and these little, areas out in the middle of nowhere that just had these trailer parks in the middle of the desert. So there was always like a real fascination with the lifestyle, thinking, what would it be like to live in one of those places? Although I'm sure the reality is not as much fun as the fantasy. I think I definitely like it more as an observer rather than wanting to be a participant.
Well, the Trailer Park Boys are Canadian. They are, I think they're from out of Halifax, Nova Scotia. I could be wrong there, but I'm surprised you know who they are.
Yeah, no, it was definitely showed out here on cable TV, and it became quite popular out here. So yeah, definitely they're known out here.
Do you have a favorite between the 3 Trailer Park Boys?
To be honest, I wouldn't know. Again, I only sort of watched a little bit of it, so I wouldn't really have watched enough to form much of an opinion on the actual individual characters. It's something I'd probably need to go back and watch from the start. Trouble is with me with a lot of TV shows, I tend to miss the first few episodes, or, I'll end up missing episodes in between. So a lot of TV shows I really only like, when I get them on a DVD or something and, watch the whole lot in a nice sort of marathon rather than trying to catch them week by week, because I always end up missing episodes and then, lose the plot of where it's going, so I give up. So to me, it's always best, like I do with Breaking Bad and Sons of Anarchy. I just wait till they're all out on DVD and then sit there and watch them in a weekend or a week-long marathon.
Well, you know what? There's 3 Trailer Park Boys movies, and Ivan Reitman produced the first one. So,
okay.
Yeah, there's 3 of them. So, yeah, if you get a chance...
Best to start with the movies or the TV show, you think?
Well, you know what? You could do either. Like, I haven't really watched a lot of the TV shows because my television's only set up to play my Blu-rays, so I'm more familiar...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm more familiar with the movies than I am the TV show, but the movies will give you the gist of what they're about, so...
Yeah, well, a lot of the times when they do movies based on popular TV shows, the first movie usually, is the one that introduces the characters and will often, redo the best bits from the TV show. So I'll have a look around. That's definitely another one I'll look into and watch with Marneen if she's interested.
Oh, yeah, I think she'd dig the Trailer Park Boys. Do you have any favorite
I'll let her know.
Do you have any favorite filmmakers?
Of course, yeah. There's a lot of filmmakers that I really love, of all different genres. I love Russ Meyer, who made, a lot of those early
Beyond the Valley of the Dolls
movies Beyond the Valley of the Dolls and Vixen and Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens, all that stuff. He was, a great sort of technical filmmaker as well for that genre. The photography in his movies was just superb, and the editing. And, I like David Lynch and
Mulholland Drive.
Stuff especially, yeah, Mulholland Drive and Blue Velvet, Wild at Heart, Twin Peaks, which is making a comeback, I believe, pretty soon with a new season. Will be interesting to see how that's been received. And, David Cronenberg. I like a lot of Italian horror thriller filmmakers like Lucio Fulci, who did... Zombie, and did a lot of sort of Italian thrillers in the early 70s, Don't Torture a Duckling, and, of the current ones I mentioned earlier, that I like Christopher Nolan, who did the Dark Knight trilogy and Inception, Interstellar. I think he's one of the best current sort of filmmakers around. I'm looking forward to seeing his new movie on Dunkirk. Stanley Kubrick, I really enjoy a lot of his stuff.
Oh, yeah, like Stanley Kubrick. Alfred Hitchcock's one of my favorites, too.
Oh, Alfred Hitchcock, of course, yeah. I love his stuff. We have a big old 1930s cinema called the Astor, which is just like a 15-minute walk from where I live here, and that's like an old Art Deco, beautiful old cinema from the 30s with a huge, huge screen. So Marneen and I will regularly walk up there for a double feature, and, we recently saw Psycho and the Birds up there, which is fantastic. I love revisiting all of that stuff in a cinema on a big screen.
Oh, absolutely.
The way they were meant to be seen, I guess.
Yeah. Wow. So what's it like there in Australia right now? You got some beautiful weather there?
Well, summer's sort of just finished, so it's starting to cool down a little bit now. So a little bit of overcast and a little bit of rain, but, the summer wasn't too bad. There was a few sort of hot, humid days, but nothing, nothing unbearable. So I guess it's a little bit different for Marneen being, someone who lived in California for so long and that nice California weather year-round. But, it's nice at the moment.
Well, we're just getting into spring here.
Yeah, it's always strange. It's really weird when we when we go traveling. You'll get on the plane here in Melbourne and it's like steamy, stinking hot, and then 15 hours later you get off in the other side of the world and it's freezing cold and raining. You think, what the.
Well, we're getting down very close to the end of our time here, but before you go, do you mind if I say hello to Marneen?
No, of course not.
Yeah, stick around because I'm going to get you to close my show off with you, okay?
Okay, cool.
Yep, just put her on for a second.
You want me to put her on?
Sure.
Okay, no worries.
Hello.
Hi, Marneen. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Having a nice little chat with your husband.
I've been listening in. It's a fantastic interview.
I'm telling him how lucky he is to find such a lovely woman.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for all the Dropbox photos you sent me. I haven't got to look at the photos. I sent them to my brother. He's going to arrange them once you send the rest of the stuff, but...
Oh, well, I'm almost finished. I still have a few more to add to the folder, but there's plenty of in there for him to choose from. Use as many as he wants.
Yeah. Well, he usually does all that stuff. He'd know better than me, but yeah. But yeah, I'm very happy to have been able to have you on and talk about your various movies and whatnot, and have your husband on tonight. That was just wickedly fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. And isn't he amazing? His knowledge, and I mean, it just rolls off of him. I love listening to him speak about film, and we're just thrilled you had us on your show.
Yes, you know what? That is awesome. Sometime maybe next year, maybe, I should have arrange it so that the two of you come on at the same time.
That would be excellent. I'd love that.
Yeah.
Because we have our books, that we're writing together, and that would be awesome to do a double person.
I've done double people before. Usually you two would have to connect on your end, and when I call into one of your numbers, and then you two connect together. And if you guys got a book coming, when's the book going to be out?
We have two books about my life that John is the film historian on, and they're just sensational. We'll be pitching to publishers within about the next 60 days. And then John and I John has created a series of live interviews, the first time, ever, where I appear with him on stage and we introduce a film that I've been in, and he has a question-answer session.
Okay.
And so we have a couple of these already completed, and we have more on the calendar.
Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe sometime, maybe next year, give you a year to get all this stuff sorted, and I'll have you two both on together.
That sounds great. Just keep us posted. Now I'll go ahead and give you back to John. I'm glad to talk to you today, and I'm excited about my interview too. So thank you just so much.
Just be patient. It's going to be a while before it airs, but just be patient with me, and it will be going out. But God bless you, Marneen. It's wonderful to know you.
Oh, and you too. Thank you so much. So here's John back, and we'll be on touch on Facebook. Be in touch some more.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yep.
Hello, I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm glad Marneen got to mention the two books that we're writing. I was going to mention that when I came back because, we got the two books that we're currently doing together. There's Rolling with the Punches, which is like an in-depth look at a stunt and acting career over the years. And there's also Cartwheels and Halos, which is more of a overall biography about her, her life and her upbringing and her beliefs and her musical career. So that's very exciting. And I've got my own book that I'm working on myself on the films of Marjo Gortner, who was a former child evangelist in the 1940s, the youngest ever ordained minister. And in 1972, he sort of made a comeback in his 20s as a preacher, and then made a documentary in which he exposed the sort of fraudulent side of evangelism. And that documentary won an Academy Award that year for Best Documentary, and Marjo sort of used that as a springboard to act, and he appeared in some very sort of, I guess you'd call them cheesy exploitation drive-in movies like Earthquake and Bobby Joe and the Outlaw, and When You're Coming Back, Red Ryder, a really fantastic performance by him, and the previously mentioned Star Crash. So a lot of exciting projects on the horizon that always keeps us busy.
Yeah, well, I was just telling her that maybe next year, maybe around this time, I'd like to have you both on here together.
Sounds fantastic.
That sounds like a great
Definitely
idea.
Up for that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That would be fantastic, and we'll promote your books and have another nice little chat. I've enjoyed chatting with you and connecting with somebody from Australia. I've never been there, and but
you're always welcome.
Absolutely, and you got to come by Canada. You got to.
Definitely. It's definitely on the bucket list, that's for sure.
Nobody knows where...
I'd like to do it just to, just for my mum as well, who is no longer with us, but always wanted to visit Canada on one of the, her holidays overseas. So if I get there, I'll kind of feel like I'm doing it for her as well, which would be nice.
Well, even if you get the chance, swing by New Brunswick here, because, New Brunswick, Canada... Nobody seems to know where we are.
No, it sounds a plan. We'd definitely swing by if we could and say hi. That'd be terrific.
That would be fantastic. So before you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
No, of course.
Yeah.
What was the name of the show again? You need to, because I don't get it over here.
It's called Python's Paradise. Python like the snake.
Yep.
Yeah, and my name, of course, is Greg Gilbert, and I'm out of New Brunswick, Canada. So just state your name. Yeah, just state your name and say you're listening to Greg Gilbert on Python's Paradise in New Brunswick, Canada.
Okay, you ready to go?
I'm ready.
Hello there, this is John Harrison calling all the way from Australia, telling everyone in New Brunswick, Canada to tune in to Python's Paradise and let Greg Gilbert strike out at you with some great film news, great film reviews, and great music.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? I think you might be able to get my show over there if you go on the internet. And
fantastic. Can you send me a link?
I can definitely do that. And of course, I've got a YouTube channel as well. Just type in my name, and I've got over 50 of my interviews up on YouTube right now.
Oh, fantastic! I'll check it out, and I'll share it on my page as well.
Absolutely.
For my local friends to have a listen to.
Absolutely. You go right ahead. God bless you, John. I thank you for coming on here, and I bid you and Marneen a great day. You're enjoying your morning, and I'm enjoying my evening.
Yep, it's about 10:16 a.m. here, so still fairly early. We'll probably go out for a bit of lunch later once the rain eases up. But you have a great night over there, mate. It's fantastic. Been great talking to you.
It's about 9:15 in the evening here, so I'm starting to get a little feel about where you guys are, time zone wise. You guys are way ahead of us.
Yep.
So I'll keep it. Huh?
It's Tuesday here, so I guess it's still Monday night over there for you.
Yeah, for another 2+ hours, it's Monday. But, I'll keep in touch with you two on Facebook. And like I said, next year we'll reconnect, all three of us.
Sounds fantastic.
Sounds fantastic. Well, God bless you, and you have yourself a wonderful evening, or wonderful morning.
You too, mate. Take it easy. Great talking to you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.